So today we're going to make some homemade noodles. Basically, flour, salt, and egg are the only ingredients that we need. All right.
Bowl? Okay.
I have a large flat bowl. It's like a pasta bowl, you know, like spaghetti bowl. But I have to tell you, normally I just roll it out on the countertop. But, you know, I was trying to be just a little bit more professional here. So you just take 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and the amounts are variable depending on what how many you're making. I'm making a small batch. Usually I use probably 3 or 4 cups. And just sprinkle in some salt.
Okay.
It's a very hands-on kind of process. So I'm mixing a little bit of the salt in with the flour and making us a well in the middle. I'm going to take my ring off.
Okay. We get some flour up in this bitch.
Yep. And then I'm just going to crack some eggs, 4 eggs. So it's usually, depending on how big your eggs are, it's 1 or 2 eggs. I use 2 eggs per cup of flour. But it totally is dependent on how big are the eggs. And,
Right.
you know, sometimes it's a little bit more, sometimes it's a little bit less. But it all works out in the end because you get the feel for the dough. When it gets the right texture, you know.
All right. Cool. How much salt did you just a pinch? Or...
Yeah, it's probably about a ½ teaspoon, so a good pinch, not just a little pinch, but like a 2-finger pinch.
Okay, let me put a little more.
So this is what I end up with, which is I kneaded it for about 5 minutes, back and forth, folding it over, pushing it down, and then you end up with this pretty ball that is not sticky, but not real dry, and you just let it sit there for 10-15 minutes or until you're ready to roll. Yeah, so all you need is your dough, flour, and a clean surface to work on.
Okay.
And your rolling pin. And then we will get the sharpest knife you have is what is necessary to cut. Do you guys have granite or do you have Formica? Okay. So you'll need like a cutting board then when it's time to cut it.
Okay.
So, yep. Sharpest knife available. Because they always plump up, so you want to cut it just as thin as you possibly can.
Okay.
So, yep, you pull your dough out of the bowl. It's a little sticky on the bottom, but that's okay.
Okay.
You got it? Stick your hand in the flour.
Okay.
And drop it on your work surface. Here, I'm going to put it down so you can see my work surface. You see my work surface? Right? And, you know, you just kind of, it's okay. And you plop it on there. Give it a little pat. Flip it over. Give it a little pat. The point is you don't want it sticking to the work surface, but so you just kind of have to, again, you kind of work the flour. You don't want a lot of flour, but enough to, so do you see how I kind of put flour on there and then wiped off the big pieces?
Yeah.
Right? Back and forth. You just get a nice, really light layer of flour on there and get it started. And then we're going to move to the rolling part. So mine, I don't know, you can see mine is kind of oblong, right? I got a lot of flour as I need it. Now I'm going to take my rolling pin. My hand's a little floury. Put a little bit of flour on that rolling pin. Make sure you have the light layer of flour on your dough, and you just start rolling back and forth. And it's kind of, you see it's kind of rolling a little bit. That's a good thing. That means you have some flour down there to keep it from sticking. And now I'm gonna flip it again, because again, you have to have a little flour.
Mine's like kind of going back into, it's like shrinking every time you.
Yeah, it does shrink a little bit. Do you see how mine's doing it? Like, look at this roll. See how it's growing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that's what mine's doing too.
Mine's doing that too. So you just keep working it. So you can touch it. It's not sticky at all, but you don't want a lot of flour on there. You just want a very light layer so it's staying, right? And now I got a piece down here that's sticking. So I'm gonna lift him up, put in a little bit more flour, put him back down.
Right.
Lift him up, put in a little bit more flour, lay him back down. And then again, you just kind of keep rolling until it's almost, I mean, it's not paper thin, but it's pretty darn close to paper thin.
All right.
How is it going for you?
It's going okay. Here's, I guess let me just show you this one.
Okay. Oh, that looks great.
It does?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, is it sticking at all?
No, it's kind of just.
Good. All right, so here's your lesson for rolling. You're doing a good job. Start in the middle and go out. Middle and come back. Middle and go out. Middle, come back. Middle, go out. All right? And then do it, turn it perpendicular. Middle and out, middle and back. Middle and out.
This rolling pin, I feel like, is very cheap. I can feel that it's very cheap.
Oh, really? All right.
It's gonna break.
So mine is about, it's not the perfect circle, I will say, or, it should be more rectangular. You don't want it sticking to, I got a little sticky piece there. Needs some more loving. Because you want to make it as kind of rectangular as you can, but you can't obsess over it.
Okay.
My edges are a little thicker than my middle, so I'm just trying to go around the edges, and so it's as consistent as possible.
I feel like my job also is doing it.
All right. You see, it really isn't very pretty. All right. Whoop, come back here, you. Again, my edges seem just a little bit funky. What do you think, Alex? Is it looking good?
Looks great.
All right.
Whatever, you can't even see it, maybe.
I see it.
All right.
No, you're doing a great job.
That looks pretty
Glad
darn
that
good.
Yeah, it looks really good.
How are you doing thickness-wise? Like,
It looks pretty thin.
oh, good. All right.
Is it
thin.
supposed to be thin?
It's supposed to be very thin. I said just a little less than paper thin.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Or a little more than paper thin. I'm sorry.
Oh, a little more than paper thin.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be.
Just
But I can see my countertop through some of it. It's.
Oh, really? I gotta go thinner.
I don't know. Mine's about. How big is this, Pete? Do you think? Because his should be just a little bit bigger than mine.
2 feet by 1.
Yeah.
How big is yours?
2 feet by 1.
2 by 18, I'd say. That's,
Maybe 24 by 18.
Mine's more like a square, I guess. It's
well,
more
that's okay. Square's good. You're doing a better job. Mine's really a funky shape.
Alright, plus I'm kind of running out of room, I guess.
Yeah. Right, on your cutting board?
Yeah, I don't have, well, I'm not on the cutting board.
Okay.
Just on the countertop.
Oh, okay, yeah.
there's not a ton of
Yeah.
space. Our kitchen's like.
Oh yeah, that looks good. Let me see here. Now it needs to be thinner, I think.
Thinner? Okay.
Yeah, kind of. You could. So did you see how I kind of like? You can kind of like flip it up a little bit and see where you're at, and then just put him back, right? So because you don't want him sticking, and put him back, and then just roll him some more. Like even mine could use a little bit more right here. Like you can see real thin here. You can almost see the flour underneath. I don't know if you can.
Yeah.
But it definitely has to be. When you cook the noodles, they plump up more than you would ever imagine. So that's why thinner is better. Because I like thinner noodles than the big chewy ones.
I feel like maybe mine like shrinks back and thickens up.
Yep, that's okay.
Okay.
That means it's a good texture, right? That's how you know you have the right texture.
Okay, I can see through it now.
All right, so that looks good. All right. So now here's once you have it all where you think it's that looks good, Nate. All right, so get yourself some flour in your hand and just flour it pretty good. Because this flour is just there to keep it from sticking together. We're not rubbing the flour into it at all.
Okay.
We're just using it as a protectant to the dough now as we cut it. We don't want it sticking together. So a nice little layer.
Okay.
And then I do it from the long end. It doesn't really matter. But you take, I don't know if you can see there we go. You take it and you fold it so you get like a 4-inch flip. Again, you might need a little bit more flour. That flour is not going to hurt anything. It's not going to, and then you just flip it again. So you end up with like a little, I don't know, that's probably 5-inch, 4 to 5-inch thing. And you just keep, again, kind of, because you don't want it to stick together. Keep flipping it. And then flip it. And now you have this log.
Yep.
Right?
Don't make too much of a mess.
No, baby, I'm not.
I know, but it's getting everywhere.
Oh, it's perfect. Yeah, it does. It gets everywhere. It's not a clean.
Alright, now
Alright, I'm going to get my cutting board too. I think it might help me even. So, let's see. Are you with me here? So I have my sharpest knife. I always just cut some and toss it just to get a clean edge going.
Okay.
If that makes sense. And then just as skinny as you can.
Start cutting through it?
You just start cutting through it and you end up with, initially, the first couple cuts are pretty tiny because it's not got all 5 layers or however many on there. I'll do a couple. So do, I don't know, however many you're comfortable doing. Again, fairly skinny. Part of the joy of homemade noodles is they're not consistent. So if you are so good that they're all consistent, you're a better cook than me. So
Should they be like?
there.
Okay, so those are kind of long then.
Yes. So here's what we end up with. Do you see my hands?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you just kind of lay it off to the side. You can add a little bit more flour because you're going to be adding more to it. And you don't want them to stick together. So there you go. And then you just keep cutting and kind of fluffing them out so you get that long noodle, right?
Okay.
So I don't know, I'm cutting 10, 12, and then fluff. Just kind of fluff them. And I mean, you've done that before, Nate. You've helped me do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can do that.
So now you have your noodles. And it's just a matter of going down your little log.
Do you, When you cut, are you slicing in or just cutting straight down? Do you think?
I cut straight down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. I have this long knife though that Grandpa just sharpened for me, so it's like amazing. It's getting them nice and I mean it's thinner than I've ever had them because Grandpa just sharpened my knife a couple weeks ago. And
Yeah. I mean, I like. So shovers like.
yeah. And again, it's part of the, again, I think the pretty beauty of it is it's not, doesn't have to be perfect. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah. And you know, you do it a couple times. I mean, and then you figure out maybe you like them a little thicker. Some people make, you know, like the chicken noodle soup they make with big, thicker noodles. So if that's what you're using them for, but you see how easy making noodles, there's really nothing to it. Flour, eggs, and salt. And then you can do whatever you want with them. They're kind of pretty though when they're long and...
I'm just curious, Vicky, quick question. Like, noodles from the store,
Yeah.
if you had the same thing, like if you didn't make the noodles and they were just noodles from the store,
Yep.
could you still make the rest of the recipe taste like Grandma's noodles, or they have to be store? I mean, they have to be homemade.
Well, if you want Grandma's noodles, they have to be homemade.
Okay.
If you buy store-bought noodles, they'll be good if you put them in that broth because anything you put in that broth is going to be good. Literally.
It just will taste the same.
But they won't be this because these fresh noodles, there's just something about these fresh, and I've seen fresh like fettuccine, you know, they sell buitoni fresh whatever, and that comes close, but it just isn't the same thing.
Gotcha.
If you ask me, I mean, I don't know. I guess never really, once I go to the trouble of making the broth, I think the noodle part is the easy part, right? Because it's...
Yeah, there's no way it would come out the same with, you know, just, there's no, you know. Well, alright, let me fluff that up a little bit.
Nate, you're such a
Nice.
chef right now.
Here we go.
So we have them simmering, turning it down a little bit. That's simmering a little bit too much. And we're going to let it simmer about 10 to 15 minutes, and then they're ready to serve. If you want to, we made them the day ahead. This is Wednesday, and we're having them for Thursday for Thanksgiving. So I will cool them off, maybe put them outside because it's only 40 degrees, or in a sink of iced water so that they cool off. Just put them in the refrigerator, and then it's simply a matter of putting them back on the stovetop and heating them up again to serve on Thanksgiving. So that's our noodles.